Hey friends, it's Mike. It's Sunday, January 19th, 2020, and it has been a while since I did a channel update, and so I thought I would do one this morning. I want to thank everyone for the kind words and the positive feedback and for watching and sharing the show that I did with Owen Benjamin. Typically, that type of show with that type of content would go to my Sage of Quay main channel. But because I had received so many PMs and emails and input from folks saying that Owen had been talking about my work, that I thought it was appropriate to also upload it to my Paul is Dead channel. So it's getting a lot of traffic here, and it's getting a lot of traffic on the other channel. And I want to thank everyone for all of their support and for, again, the positive feedback. Also, there was no script for that discussion. So Owen and I traded a couple of emails beforehand to introduce each other to each other. And when I got on the show, we just talked about whatever it is that came to mind. So that's an unscripted discussion, and I thought that it flowed very well, my personal opinion. And based upon the comments, looks like a lot of other people enjoyed it as well. The other thing I want to talk about, just to touch on real quickly, is I am still obviously working on the major presentation. Did the Beatles write all of their own music? It's a slow go, as I've mentioned in other videos. What happens is, as you go along and you're researching and pulling it together, you run into other aspects of the conspiracy that need to be looked at pertaining to the music. And I had mentioned in the last video that there was somebody that wanted to connect with me, and I did, and they had some great insights, and we're going to connect again to finish up that conversation. Some of what they have discussed with me will wind up in the presentation when I get it all together. The other piece of it that has created some delays is the White Album. So as I started looking into the music, I then obviously you'd run into the White Album because there are 30 something songs on the White Album. And then as I was doing the research, I found that the narrative around the White Album is very, very suspect. Okay, so I'll just leave it at that. I have been intentionally vague on what will be included in the presentation, and the reason for that is because I don't want anyone taking anything out of context. Because this presentation, being as important as it is, it's going to be extremely controversial because it's going to question their reality, their worldview of things. And so I am, very much aware of that. So that's why I've been keeping everything kind of under wraps until it's time for the video presentation to be uploaded and to premiere. And because it is all about context. It really is. It's all about keeping the dots connected and not jumping all over the place. And so I am working on it. I don't have a release date, so I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to say that when it's ready, I'll upload it. But rest assured that I'm not just sitting on it. I will try to have it out as soon as I possibly can. Okay? And obviously I have other things in life that I have to attend to, so I've got to work on this in between everything else. But again, I am working on it. The presentation will come out. It will be an eye-opener. It will definitely be food for thought. Okay? As I was going through looking at the music, something else popped up from the Sgt. Pepper album, and it's something that I knew in the back of my mind, but that I didn't pay a lot of attention to until I started digging a little bit more. But a lot of times in these Paul is Dead circles, you'll hear that Billy took songs that were left over from the bio-Paul period. In other words, biological Paul McCartney left material behind after he passed away, and that material was used by Billy, and Billy was basically using Paul's material, and at least in the very beginning, and releasing those songs. I will tell you this, I'll give you this much, based upon the work that I'm doing about the songwriting, Biological Paul did not leave behind a plethora of music. Okay, I'll just leave it there. And one of the songs that people like to bring up as a Biological Paul McCartney song is "She's Leaving Home" off of Sgt. Pepper. And what we all should know that is none of the Beatles played on "She's Leaving Home." The only participation by the Beatles on "She's Leaving Home" is Billy and John Lennon singing the song. And George Martin didn't even arrange the song. That was left to Mike Meander. I hope I have Mike's name correct. If I don't, Mike, if you're still around, I apologize. The story goes that at the time George Martin was tied up with some other work. Billy wanted to get the song done. He didn't want to wait for George Martin when he finished up his prior engagement, and so he hired Mike to arrange the song. But the song just reeks of Billy. Billy wrote the song and he composed the song, and then he had Mike Leander come in and do the arrangements. But none of the Beatles played on that song. Okay, so that's not a Biological Paul McCartney song. I mean, the intricacies of what is contained in "She's Leaving Home" is way beyond the play grade of any of the Beatles, or I should say, for somebody who is not formally trained in music and music theory. And there's a very similar situation with another song on Sgt. Pepper, "Within You Without You" by George Harrison. The story behind that one is, George wrote the song on guitar, which is, very plausible, obviously, but none of the Beatles played on "Within You Without You" either. So there was all of that was put together by George Martin as well. All of the composing and the arranging was George Martin. It's not to say that George Harrison didn't have oversight, because if indeed he wrote the song on guitar, obviously he would have a vested interest in how the song turned out. The official narrative on that story also says that the rest of the Beatles were very neutral, humdrum about the song. They were not overly excited by it. But my personal take is that that song is one of the shining moments on Sgt. Pepper. I think it's a great song, regardless of who wrote it, arranged it, composed it. It really is a great song, and with a great message. My personal opinion. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to address, and in the show with Owen, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but we didn't follow up on it, and that has to do with the whole John Halliday thing, right? So I continue to get people writing me and putting comments up and saying, "Hey, Mike, John Halliday sure does look like Biological Paul, and maybe he's not dead, and he's the caretaker at his childhood home and all that stuff." And I actually addressed this in a video I did months ago. It's the 20 top questions I get asked about Paul is dead. And John Halliday is not Biological Paul. So, this whole thing is just this massive psychological operation, and they're always screwing with your mind. They're always trying to get people to run down rabbit holes that have no finish line. There's no goal line, right? So you just continue to wander, and and you go off into la la land. And the Halliday thing is one of those situations. It's a ruse. And so what they did was they obviously found somebody that has a resemblance to Biological Paul. Now, the key to the John Halliday thing is everybody focuses on that video, and the video's put together where it's slickly done. There's no question about it, where they superimpose Biological Paul on Halliday, and it looks like there's a very close match to facial features. But the thing is, there are pictures of John Halliday on the internet. You can go Google them yourself, where there is a younger version of him. And if you take a look at the younger version of John Halliday, he doesn't look anything like biological Paul McCartney. All right, so Halliday is not biological Paul McCartney. Biological Paul McCartney, all of the clues and the circumstantial evidence points to the fact that he did indeed die in 1966. Okay, and the same thing goes for Mark Stacer. I get people who say, hey, Mark Stacer is John Lennon, and Mark Stacer is not John Lennon. Mark Stacer has a website, and I'll put the link down below. You can go take a look where he's marketing his John Lennon impersonation, and he's doing gigs and stuff like that. So, and if you take a close look at Stacer, he's not John Lennon, and the ages don't even match up, right? Because John today would be in his 80s. So that right there, right, I think puts that to rest. I have been contacted by a couple of people who have said that there's a particular person out there that I did a Paul is Dead interview with that is complaining that I took the show down. I took the interview down, and this person is sitting on their Paul is Dead page and complaining about this. So let me just clarify and clear the air as to why that happened. I did take the show down, and the reason I did was because I extended the olive branch to some folks in order to bridge the divide within the Paul is Dead community, because it can be, as I've mentioned in other videos, extremely toxic. Very, very toxic. I've never seen anything like it, where other people who are doing research attack other researchers, namely me. And I haven't attacked anybody. In fact, I have said in shows that everybody has contributed to the awakening to some degree, some more than others, obviously. But everybody has their level of contribution. And I've also said that don't just read memoirs. There's other books out there. There's Collestrom's book and other books that go ahead and read them. Read everything. And then what you should do is then decide for yourself where you land with this conspiracy if you're that interested in it. Okay? So the point I'm trying to make is that I'm sitting here trying to do my own thing and plowing ahead with my research, and clearly my research does not sync up with what somebody else has looked at or other conclusions that somebody else has concluded on or is proposing. But that's okay, right? It's okay to agree to disagree. It's as simple as that. And but some people they just can't let it be. No pun intended. They just can't let it be at that level, right? So they have to talk smack. And so that's what happened. So, I did this interview and to help this person out, because this person had been contacting me. They were contacting me on Skype. They were contacting me on Facebook. And clearly what they were looking to do was to have some time to come on the show to talk about their research. And I said, yeah, okay, let's do it. Let's talk about it. And this particular person was not sold on the Vivian Stanshall thing, and during the show, they had said, "Well, I know that you don't agree with me," and I said, "That's okay. It's okay that I don't agree with you, right?" So it was, I thought, a good show. I had to put a lot of effort into that show to get it down to 2 hours, because there was a lot of how do I say, redundancy as this person was doing the show. I mean, it just seemed like it was never going to end. And I actually sat behind the microphone for 3 hours. And I knew I had to get that show down to about 2 hours. Because what happens with shows, any show, and I have only maybe one or two exceptions to this that I can think of. One is the Martin Kenny show that I did on his Cosmic Clock, where that ran 3 hours. But if you do anything over 2 hours, what happens is people just glaze over. You lose the audience, plain and simple. And so I had to, with that show, I had to edit it. And it was very, very time consuming to do this. And to make sure that it made sense, to make sure it flowed, and to make sure that it was coherent. Okay? And I'm not trying to be, negative toward this person. I'm just explaining what it is I had to do on my end. So what I'm saying is I extended an olive branch. I gave them, time on the show. They ran 3 hours knowing, because I explained up front that it has to be a 2-hour show, but they still went on for an hour beyond. And then I had the process of editing and pulling it together again so that it flowed and so that it would make sense. And so after that show, a couple of these people that I did shows with, they went off and they started talking smack about me and about my research and stuff like that. Okay, so that is unbelievably unprofessional. Okay, this would be like you get hired by a company, right? You go in, you interview, they say, yeah, we're going to hire you. And then you go to work for the company, and as soon as you get there, you start talking negative about the company that you work for, right? You start talking shit. And then expect that the company's going to continue to employ you. It's not going to work, right? It's just not going to work. So what I did was I kept the interview up for a very long time. And I wanted to see if this person and others would rein it in and behave themselves. And they didn't. And so I said, look, not on my nickel. I'm not going to put you on my platform and then get you out to a large audience and then have you talk shit and trash talk. It's just not going to happen. Why would I do that? Right? A fool would do that, and I'm not a fool. So I gave them months, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited. And what they don't realize is that there are people who are on their particular Paul is Dead Facebook pages, and they get back to me, and they tell me, Mike, this is what's going on. This is what they're saying. Yeah, they're saying this, they're saying that. They're bashing you, they're bashing the book, they're bashing Tom, and this is how they're spending their time. And so, because I myself don't go there, I've said this so many times, I don't spend my time focused on other researchers. I just don't. I mean, I know enough to know about where they stand on things, and that's all I need to know because I'm knee deep in what I'm looking at. And I have a great team of people that are working with me. I have top shelf sources who contribute to the research, and as far as I'm concerned, I have a circle of researchers and sources and good folks, even folks that email me and PM me with very valuable information. That is really all I need to put together what it is that I'm putting together. My point being is I don't spend any time focused on their stuff, but periodically people will come back and say to me, this is the type of stuff that they're posting. Sometimes they'll even take screen captures and show them to me. And I've gotten back to these folks. I've responded. I said, look, you don't need to send screen captures. You don't need to send any of that stuff. I don't wish to see any of this. It's irrelevant. It really is. I look at it this way. They're spending way too much time chasing me and not enough time working on getting exposure for their own material, right? So if they took all of that energy that they're expending on trying to discredit me or debunk me or to debate me or to argue with me, and in very small forums, by the way. I mean, they really, this person doesn't have a large presence. So if I give you the opportunity to be able to get your message out to a potential audience of 25,000 subscribers between my main page and my Paul is Dead page, and also on Mixcloud, and also the show is on iHeartRadio and Spotify and now Pandora. It's on Spreaker, right? So it's out there. So the potential for people to hear your message is pretty good. I mean, it's pretty darn good. And so they engage in this behavior, and so they shoot themselves in the butt. That's what happened. So for this person who evidently is continuing to complain and whine about the fact that the show came down, you have no one to blame but yourself. I mean, settle down. Just pull it in, rein it in, and be professional. And don't worry about Mike Williams. Worry about your own stuff. If you have something that you want to say, if you have, a narrative, if you have a storyline that you want to put out there, then develop your platforms. Develop your media. Don't go after somebody who was generous and gave you the opportunity to get your word out and then bash them. I mean, that just makes no sense. That's just foolishness. Okay? So I just want to cover that. I don't like talking about this stuff. I really don't. And honestly, I really don't focus on the other researchers. I really don't. I look at it this way. Where we are at, and I'm talking about myself, the team, the folks that subscribe and follow the work, who are contributing in their own way, we're on a locomotive. Okay, this train has got a head of steam and it's going. And a lot of these other folks, they've missed the train. The train has left the station. And so it's because of the fact that we have this head of steam that, this is where my focus is at. I'm not looking back. I'm not looking over my shoulder. We're just going to look ahead. All right. Last thing, is, the trolls and the people who hate and all that stuff. Some folks say that I'm censoring because I'm not allowing all the comments to come through. Let me just say that 98 to 99% of the comments that come through, they are posted because there's a lot of good people out there. As I mentioned in the show with Owen, the good people far outnumber the people that want to be troublemakers. Far outnumber them. Okay? So if you're going to be a troll, if you're going to be belligerent, and you're going to say nasty things, and most of your vocabulary consists of the vocabulary of a 15-year-old, and you're not bringing any value to the conversation, your comment is not going to make it onto my YouTube channel or to any of my platforms. Okay? I am dedicated to raising the bar on conversation and dialogue. Like a lot of other people, we are sick and tired of all of the idiotic, belligerent, and uninformed commentary that's out there. If you don't want to raise the bar, if you don't want to get it to the point where you're thinking to a point where you're being intellectual, that you've done some research, you've done your own investigating, then I don't know what to tell you. This is not the place for you. That's what I'll say. This is not the place. There are many other YouTube channels that will put up with that stuff. This is not one of them. I got a comment a while back, and it's about Tavistock, and it's amazing to me how many people just do not understand how this world really works. They do not understand the pyramid of power. No matter how many times I talk about it, no matter how many times I illustrate it, no matter how many proof points I put out there, no matter how many books people have written about the deep state, about Tavistock, about the Committee of 300, or any of that stuff. People are just lazy. A small percentage are just lazy. And so 2 comments. One was this guy says, this is going back a while back, he says, where does it say that the Beatles attended Tavistock, as if it's some kind of college or university, as if the Beatles went with their little school bags and their lunch boxes and they sat down in class. I mean, it's unbelievable, right? And another person wrote recently, show me one proof point regarding Tavistock and the Beatles. Again, I mean, it's amazing to me. A proof point. Look, that's why it's called conspiracy research. That's why it's called alternative research. Do you think that on the Tavistock website, they're going to say that they created the Beatles for the purposes of social and cultural engineering? Do you actually think that there's going to be something in the mainstream that's going to be published like that? Right? No. And the thing is, I'm not here to fill in the blanks for everybody that doesn't want to do any work. So if for whatever reason you don't want to do any research, you're comfortable where you're at, sitting in the matrix, you're drinking the Kool-Aid, you want to worship your bands and your artists and your celebrities, and you don't like what I have to say because it sends a ripple through your reality, then I suggest one of two things. Either roll your sleeves up and do some research and some homework and understand how it all works, or just step back into the matrix. Don't be here. Then this channel is not for you. My main channel, Sage of Quay, is not for you. So if it disturbs you, it makes you angry, then don't be here. There are so many other places you can be. I really don't understand the psychology of people that go someplace and watch something and listen to something that makes them upset, that makes them angry. So mad and so angry that they just have to spew hatred. And they have to go home and kick the dog and punch their wife. If this or anything gets you into that state, you need to chill out, relax, step back, step away from it, and go do something else. Okay? Nobody should get themselves that riled up. I'm not intending to get anybody riled up. As I've said, all I'm doing is presenting my findings and my research. As I explained to another person who left a comment yesterday, they said, well, I don't believe the Beatles were a Tavistock creation. I said, I'm not here to make you believe anything. I don't care what you believe. I really, honestly don't care what people believe, because I have been at this long enough to know that people are going to believe whatever it is they want to believe. All I'm doing is putting my material out there and sharing it. That's all I'm doing. If it doesn't resonate with you, it doesn't resonate with you. Again, the door is over there. There are other channels out there. There are other things to do, other places to be where it fits your belief system. That's where you should go. It's not here. Okay? Anyway, I don't want to get too preachy, but I did want to cover a couple of things. And again, I want to thank everybody for all of their support. Oh, there is one last thing. The Paul is Dead channel, my Paul is Dead channel, finally broke 5,000 subscribers. And I'll tell you, I've had to work really hard for that. I showed on the community tab where YouTube took out 1,100 views on the Crowley video I did on the occult practice of reversal. And before that, I did the show. I was a guest with Richard Surratt, and I have also the screen captures for that, where they took out 2,500 views on that one. So I'm not complaining. In the beginning, when that first happens to you, it does bother you. It irks you that they're doing this. But when you finally say to yourself, there's nothing you can do about it. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. So one person, very astute person, commented, "Hey, Mike, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter, whether they took the views out, because people watched it. They can't take away what people watched." So, and that is absolutely correct. So again, thank you everyone for the support. We've hit 5,000 subscribers on my Paul is Dead page. My Sage of Quay has picked up over 900 subscribers over the last 30 days, and so I think I'm pushing around 19,000 subscribers there. So really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. That's it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. And the comment section is open below. Bye now.